The royal medical wing of the Zetharian palace hummed with desperate energy. 14 of the galaxy's finest physicians crowded around the crystalline cradle, where Princess Lixavel wailed with a force that seemed impossible for her tiny body. Her cries reverberated through the bioluminescent walls, a sound that had echoed without pause for 72 hours. Freya pressed her mop against the corridor floor, watching the commotion from a respectful distance. As a human janitor aboard the most prestigious station in the Andromeda sector, she'd learned to make herself invisible. Humans were still novelties here, tolerated but not quite trusted, their strange biology and unpredictable nature keeping them relegated to menial work. "The harmonic resonators are having no effect," announced Dr. Velkoth, his 6 arms gesturing frantically at floating holographic displays. "Her neural patterns are completely dysregulated. We've tried every frequency in the Zetharian comfort spectrum," added Dr. Shayra, her antennae drooping with exhaustion. "Nothing works. The princess will damage her developing consciousness if this continues." Freya pushed her cleaning cart closer, pretending to wipe down a nearby panel. She couldn't help herself. The baby's cries tugged at something primal in her chest. Back on Earth, before the colony ships, she'd helped raise her 3 younger siblings. She knew that sound. That wasn't just discomfort or illness. That was pure, overwhelming loneliness. Emperor Zixvel himself materialized in the doorway, his scales shimmering with distress. "My daughter has been crying since the moment her mother departed for the outer negotiations. Your best technology has failed. What solutions remain?" The doctors exchanged uncertain glances. One finally spoke. "Your Majesty, we could induce a temporary stasis, but no." The Emperor's voice cracked like a whip. "She will not sleep through her first weeks of life. There must be another way." Freya knew she shouldn't. She was nobody, a human with a mop, earning barely enough credits to send home to her family. But the baby's cries were drilling into her heart, and she'd seen that same desperate helplessness in her own mother's eyes when her baby brother wouldn't stop screaming during those long Earth nights. She stepped forward. "Your Majesty?" Every head in the room turned toward her. The Emperor's eyes, vast and golden, fixed upon her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "A human?" Dr. Velkoth's voice dripped with disdain. "This is a royal medical emergency, not—" "Let her speak." The Emperor raised one clawed hand. Freya's mouth went dry, but she forced the words out. I think she's lonely, Your Majesty, not sick. Just lonely." "Preposterous," Dr. Shayra scoffed. "Zetharian infants don't experience emotional distress until their 3rd month. This is clearly a neurological issue." "But she's half Kelvorian, isn't she?" Freya pressed on, surprising herself with her boldness. "The Empress is Kelvorian, and I read once that Kelvorian young imprint on specific sound frequencies. They need consistency, comfort." The room fell silent except for the baby's relentless wailing. "Your medical scans," Freya continued, her voice gaining strength. "They're probably all different frequencies, different tones. You're trying everything, which means nothing is consistent. She doesn't know what to hold on to." The Emperor stared at her for a long moment. "What would you suggest?" May I try something?" Freya asked, her heart hammering. "If it doesn't work, I'll leave immediately. I promise." Dr. Velkoth started to protest, but the Emperor silenced him with a look. "Proceed." Freya set down her mop and approached the cradle slowly. The baby was exquisite. Tiny scales in rainbow hues, miniature horns barely visible on her forehead, and those huge, tear-filled eyes that were somehow universal across species. She was terrified and exhausted and desperate for something familiar in a world that suddenly felt empty. Freya didn't touch her. Instead, she did what her own mother had done, what human mothers had done for thousands of years before technology tried to replace instinct. She began to hum. It wasn't anything fancy, just an old lullaby her grandmother had taught her. Twinkle, twinkle, little star in its simplest form, a melody so ancient that nobody remembered who'd written it first. The tune rolled out soft and low, steady as a heartbeat, warm as sunlight. Princess Lixavel's cries stuttered, hitched. Freya kept humming, letting the melody repeat, consistent and unchanging. She swayed slightly, the way humans did instinctively, that gentle rock that mimicked the movement of being carried. The baby's wails diminished to whimpers. The doctors stood frozen, their instruments forgotten. Dr. Velkoth's jaw hung open, his translators unable to process what he was witnessing. Freya hummed the melody again and again, never changing it, never adding complexity. Just the same simple tune over and over, a promise in sound. I'm here. I'm steady. You're safe. Princess Lixavel's eyes began to flutter. Her tiny fists unclenched. The whimpers faded to soft coos and then silence. Blessed, peaceful silence. She was asleep. The Emperor's hand gripped the edge of the cradle, his powerful body trembling. How? His voice was barely a whisper. How did you do what our finest science could not? Freya smiled softly, still humming for a few more bars before letting the melody fade. Sometimes the old ways work best, Your Majesty. Humans have been soothing babies for hundreds of thousands of years. We learned that they don't need perfection. They need consistency, something to hold on to in the chaos. Dr. Shera checked her instruments, her antennae quivering with disbelief. Her neural patterns are completely stable, peaceful. I don't understand. It's not about understanding, Freya said gently. It's about connection. The Emperor looked at her with new eyes, not at a janitor, but at someone who'd succeeded where all his empire's knowledge had failed. What is your name? Freya, Your Majesty. Just Freya. Just Freya. The Emperor's voice was rich with emotion. You will be compensated for— I don't want compensation, Freya interrupted, then winced at her own boldness. I mean, if Your Majesty wouldn't mind, could you maybe tell people what happened here? Not about me specifically. About humans. We're not just good for cleaning and heavy lifting. We know things too. Old things. Simple things. Things that matter. Emperor Zixval studied her for a long moment, then placed his hand over his heart in the Zetharian gesture of deepest respect. The galaxy will know, he promised. And Freya, when my daughter wakes and cries again as all infants do, will you teach me that sound? That human lullaby? Freya grinned. It would be my honor, Your Majesty. As she returned to her mop and cart, Quill, her human supervisor, stood in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. He'd watched the whole thing. Freya, he breathed. Do you realize what you just did? She shrugged but couldn't suppress her smile. Just hummed a tune, Quill, just hummed a tune. Behind them, the most powerful being in the sector sat beside his daughter's cradle, and in halting, awkward tones, began to hum Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Sometimes, humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its aggression or its endless curiosity. Sometimes it was simply remembering that before there were computers and star drives and empire-spanning civilizations, there were mothers humming in the dark, promising their children that someone was there, and everything would be okay. That promise, it turned out, was universal,